Hey guys, Nicole here with Obscure Reptiles and Caging, and today we're going to be doing an adult ball python care guide. So let's get started. Hey guys, so today we're going over adult ball pythons. We've done one for hatchlings, but not for adults. As you guys know, I have quite a few ball pythons. They are my favorite species, but it doesn't mean that they're the best beginner snake. For example, if you've never had a snake and you want a ball python, you have the right setup and you've done a lot of research on the care, then go for it. But if you want something that's really easy or something for your kid that maybe needs to be a little bit more durable, I'd recommend something more like a corn snake. They are smaller, they need less cage, they're a little bit more flexible when it comes to their temperature range, but ball pythons are pretty specific, and as long as you have it perfect, their setup, the temperature, humidity, everything like that, they can be awesome animals, but chances are they will food strike. Food strike is when they refuse to eat, and a lot of time it actually coincides with the breeding season. So like right around now when there's a lot less daylight and it's cooler, the temperatures have all dropped, ball pythons go into what's called brumation. And it's basically like hibernation is the best way, simplest way to put it. They're going to slow down even more than they already are. And a lot of them will stop eating. So that is okay and normal as long as you're tracking their weight, stuff like that. Know that if you have a ball python, chances are at some point in life it's either going to go off food, and if you're somebody who really only wants to feed frozen thawed, sometimes ball pythons will need live. Unfortunately, some will never eat frozen. Some will eat frozen their whole life, but the majority of them will kind of bounce back and forth between what they're willing to take. I'll show you a couple different size ball pythons. So males generally get around 4 foot. You can get them larger, but this is just an average. About 4 feet, and they tend to stay a little bit on the slimmer side as long as you are feeding them properly. Males like to go off feed in the breeding season, which is perfectly okay as long as they're not too skinny or losing weight too drastically. Females can get up to 6 feet, and they can actually be very large around. A lot of my ball pythons right now are going into brumation or started, so they're stopping eating. So mine are a little bit on the bigger side right now. That way, when they went off food for brumation, they had enough body storage for when they have their eggs. They are very specific when it comes to temperatures and humidities. I will say it as many times as need be, do not use glass for your ball python. Glasses are cold to the touch. These animals are from a very warm and humid climate. So you do not want to use glass. No matter what the pet store tells you, do not buy that glass tank. You can do a bunch of different things. Like these are PVC racks. This is what I like to use because it helps save on space. You don't have to go this way. You can also do things like this. These are enclosures. These are 3x2x1. Depending on the size of your adult ball python, if you have a female, you can do a 4x2x1. But a 3x2x1 is already enough space for the general size unless you have a mammoth sized ball python. So there are several options. You can even make a custom one at home out of things like plywood or press board or things like that, as long as it's sealed properly, as long as it holds the right humidity and temperature on the hot and cold side. For these guys, you're looking for a hot spot of anywhere between 89 and 93 degrees. You want to make sure it's maintained at that so they can self-regulate their body. Their cold should never go below 75 degrees. The best way of telling what the temperature is to use something like this. This is a temperature gun. I talk about it in quite a few of my videos. This way you're able to see the hot and cold side of your enclosure. Another super easy way to tell if the temperature and humidity are correct in your enclosure is get some of these. This one was maybe $10. I like these ones a lot more. They seem to be a little bit more accurate. I keep them all around my reptile room and actually in a lot of the enclosures, or at least in every couple, so that way I can see the different temperature fluctuation. And I got these cheaper ones, which are pretty accurate. They're pretty close. They're pretty accurate. I mean, these two were on different spots in the room, so they are a little bit different temperature-wise right now. But these, I got like 10 of them for like 10 bucks or something like that. So get a couple of these. Still get that temperature gun, but this is really easy also if you don't want to constantly pull out that temperature gun, to keep an eye on it, because different times of the year, like let's say you have your air conditioning blasting on your enclosure, whatever you have it set up in, it could be way too cold in there. Or again, in winter, it could be right near where the heat blows and it could be too warm. So just make sure you're keeping an eye on it, and these make that really easy. There's not a huge difference between male and female ball pythons. In my opinion, I'd say a male ball python is a little bit easier, especially as a pet. They stay a little bit smaller. They can have a very high food drive, but in my experience, the females have a much higher food drive. So males can come off a little bit, say, friendlier, if you want to call it that, just because they're not as aggressive towards food. But they can be. This is one species that you do not need UVB lights. You can. It does show off the animal's color and pattern a lot better, but you don't have to. They don't require UVB. To get your hot spot, you can do a couple of different things. You can do something like this. This is a heat lamp or heat fixture. If like this is a PVC enclosure, this specific one I got from I believe Animal Plastics a while ago. You can get dome cutouts like this and have the heat fixture and have it on a timer on 12 hours, off 12 hours. Make sure you don't use red light bulbs. Snakes actually don't close their eyes when they sleep. A lot of research that's newer says that it actually can hurt them because it tricks them into thinking it's daytime all the time, and it kind of can mess with them. So just don't use it. It's a lot easier. You can just get something like this. This is a reptile heating pad. As long as you're hooking it up to a thermostat, I would recommend going more the heating pad route rather than the heat fixture, because the heat fixture you can only have on 12 hours, off 12 hours, because they still need time to be able to sleep. And in those 12 hours of it being off, your temperatures are going to drop. You're going to have no warm spot. The whole thing is going to get pretty cold unless you have your house super warm. A heating pad is a really easy, really good solution. You can also do heat tape, stuff like that. But as long as you're hooking up to a thermostat, you can actually completely control the temperature. So let's say you wanted the hot spot 94 because your house is really cold, and then that'll get your cooler side of the enclosure, raise the temperature up. It's a lot easier to use a heating pad. You can use a light fixture, but you have to make sure that it's going to be warm enough during the night when that light fixture is turned off. The thing you should know is snakes are wild animals. They can and they will bite you, and that's okay. A really good way to make sure that you do not get bit, or to at least prevent it as much as possible, is to hook train your snake. What that means is every single time you go to take your animal out of that enclosure, they only can see heat signatures. So if you're wearing a hoodie, all they see is your hand, which is the size of a rat, and you're reaching in, they're going to go after your hand because they think it's food, not that they're trying to hurt you. So if you use a hook every time you just get your snake out of the enclosure, once they're out, generally they're not just going to try to bite you and be aggressive. Once they're out in the open, it's more or less they think you're food, they bite real quick, and then they let go because they realize that you're not food. But if you take them out every single time with a hook, once they're out, generally they're going to be a lot more calm. They're not going to be snippy. Again, you can have snippy snakes, but most of the time it'll stop you from getting bit. You can use several different types of bedding for these guys. If you go the aspen route, that stuff molds very quickly, and these guys need humidity, so those are better for like drier species. You don't want to use things like peat moss because that's too humid. That's more for like a rainbow boa. But when it comes to ball pythons, the best that I've found is you can use paper towels and stuff like that, but you're cleaning very often and they have really no substrate to move around in. The specific brand I like to use is Reptichip. It holds humidity really well when you want it to. Normally I'll keep it on the drier side because I use very large water dishes, but then when they're going into shed, I could just spray it down. It holds that humidity and you're able to get a really nice perfect shed every time with your ball python. Feeding is a very big thing. If your snake only takes live, you can breed your own. That ends up being the cheapest route, or you have to find pet stores that have them. I say pet stores because a lot of times it's very hard to find them, especially live feeders at pet stores, so make sure you find a few different places. That way if one or two places are out, you can still find food for your animal. If you miss one or two meals, that is okay, but especially when they're younger, you don't want to do that. If you have an adult, they're a little bit more sturdy. Technically, they can live up to a year with no food, but that should be on their choice, not because you decided not to feed them. So make sure you are feeding them often when it comes to ball pythons. Whatever the largest size of their body is how big the rodent should be that they're eating. So when you have a baby snake and it's this big around, make sure the rodent is that size. So with adult ball pythons, if this snake is this big around, you're going to want to make sure you're giving them a frozen thawed medium rat, or whatever is equivalent to the thickest part of their body. Ball pythons can be pretty big, so the easiest way to know if your ball python is the correct size, they should never be teardrop shaped. They should never have a spine that's exposed. They should also not be so big as when they turn their body, they should not have any rolls. Obesity is a very big killer of ball pythons. If you overfeed them, yes, they're cute because they're fat, but that does not mean a healthy snake. They should not have any fat. And the easiest way is if they're turning their body and you can see any kind of rolls on the side, that means your animal is too large and it needs to start eating less. Depending on what size you're feeding them, what time of year it is, You really only need to feed every 7 to 14 days. Normally I feed every 7 days because I feed smaller meals. Once they do eat for you, make sure that you do not hold them for at least 48 hours because they can regurgitate. But ball pythons are what got me into breeding reptiles. So if you think that this animal sounds right for you, then do it. I think that they're awesome. I think they can be challenging at times. I also think that they can be an awesome pet for people if taken care of properly. So that's it for this video. If you guys have any questions, put them in the comments below. If you have any video ideas or things that you want to see, also put it in the comments below. I'm going to try to do some videos that people have specifically requested here very shortly, and we do videos every single Wednesday. So we'll see you next Wednesday.